Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into TikTok.
Hmm.
Its incredible rise, the U.S. government ban earlier this year, the whole national security thing, and, well, all the big questions around privacy, censorship, how tech gets governed globally. It's a lot.
It really is. And we've got some great case studies to help us unpack it. We'll look at, the history, the big players involved,
Right.
the tech itself, like that recommendation engine everyone talks about, and Project Texas.
Right.
Then kind of what the algorithm does, good and bad, and wrap up with this socio-technical view to see how it all connects and maybe what some solutions could look like.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Let's dive in. I mean, TikTok's growth was just wow.
Astonishing.
Launched in China, 2016? Then globally the next year. It felt like it just exploded. Everyone suddenly scrolling those short videos.
Yeah, and it's not just hype. It's value, estimated over $200 billion. That's huge.
Yeah, one source mentioned there aren't many companies that could even think about buying it at that price.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing behind that growth, the real engine,
The algorithm.
yeah, the algorithm,
Hmm.
that short video format is catchy, sure, but it's the recommendation system, the Pango model, some call it, that's the secret sauce.
Uh-huh.
It's super sophisticated. It doesn't just show you random stuff. It learns you fast and creates this feed that's like perfectly tailored to keep you watching. It's a powerful filter.
And clearly it worked. People were hooked. And they even moved into e-commerce, right? TikTok Shop started in 2021.
Right, showing users who are sticking around buying stuff even.
But all that success came with some serious problems, didn't it? Leading up to that U.S. ban in February.
That's really the core conflict here.
Yeah.
There was growing unease, not just in the U.S., but globally, about user data, privacy, and it all kind of boiled over with the ban. The U.S. government's main argument, based on our sources, was national security. Worries about data handling, potential sharing.
With the Chinese government, potentially?
Yeah.
And that just opened up this huge can of worms, didn't it? Big debates about privacy, what counts as censorship, how we even manage these giant global tech platforms. It feels like a real mess of competing interests.
It absolutely is. I mean, just look at the stakeholders. You've got the U.S. government, Congress, the White House.
Yeah.
They can regulate, they can ban, they pressured ByteDance to sell, they can investigate for national security. That's real power.
But they can't just, rewrite TikTok's code from D.C.
Right.
or stop it operating elsewhere.
No, their reach has limits. Then you have ByteDance, TikTok's parent. They control the algorithm, the data rules, moderation. They decide whether to sell the U.S. part, how to negotiate.
But they can't just wish away a U.S. ban either. And that whole public trust issue around data security, that's hard to control.
Very hard. And then there are the users.
Yeah.
Millions in the U.S., creators relying on it, people just enjoying it.
Their power is more about, public opinion, online campaigns, choosing other apps if they have to.
Pretty much. They can make noise, influence the conversation, but they don't directly control government moves or TikTok's internal decisions.
And what about the competition? Meta, Google, YouTube. They must have been watching closely.
Oh, definitely. A TikTok ban could mean more users, more ad money for them. They can also shape the story through their own news feeds and platforms.
But again, they can't force the government's hand or mess with TikTok's tech directly.
Right. And lastly, you have those cybersecurity and privacy groups. They dig into the data practices, publish reports, raise awareness.
Important work.
Crucial. But they advise, they inform. They don't enforce laws or dictate policy to TikTok or the government. It's a really complex balance of power.
So back to the tech. This Pangu model algorithm, it's the heart of the For You page, the FYP.
Exactly. It's AI, constantly watching how you interact, what you watch, how long, what you like, share, comment on.
Everything.
Pretty much everything, yeah. To predict what you want to see next. That's what makes the feed feel so personal sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe creepily so.
And addictive, let's
Yeah.
be honest.
Huh? Yeah, that too. It's designed for engagement. And even early versions were apparently quite groundbreaking in terms of large language models influencing AI development. It's the core engine.
Okay, and then there's Project Texas. That was TikTok's attempt to fix the security worries, right?
Sort of, yeah. The idea was to store U.S. user data in the U.S. using Oracle's cloud servers.
Trying to build a firewall, basically.
That was the concept. Create this separate zone for U.S. data. TikTok said access would be tightly controlled by a specific U.S.-based team using encryption, data segmentation, all that.
Okay, so we have this super smart algorithm pulling us in and this big effort to wall off the data. Let's talk about what these things actually allow people to do. The sources use this term affordances. What's that about?
Right? Affordances. Think of it like what possibilities does the technology offer? For a creator, the Pango algorithm offers the affordance of huge visibility.
If you play the game right.
Exactly. If you figure out the trends, use the right sounds, hashtags, make engaging stuff, the algorithm can push your video out to tons of people. It enables discovery, growth, maybe even making money.
But the flip side, someone mentioned, if you don't crack the code, you can feel like you're shouting into the void. That whole shadow banning idea.
Precisely. It can be really frustrating for creators if their reach suddenly tanks and they don't know why.
Okay, so that's creators. What about governments? What's the affordance there?
Well, the algorithm filters content anyway, for TikTok's own rules. But that filtering ability is also an affordance for governments. They can pressure TikTok to take down stuff they don't like, which obviously raises free speech alarms.
And Project Texas with the Oracle Cloud, what does that enable?
For U.S. regulators, the big affordance is potential oversight. Data stored locally means bodies like CFIUS could potentially audit it, check who's accessing what, maybe reduce that foreign access risk.
Maybe.
Maybe. But as the sources point out, even if the data is local, the algorithm itself, how it decides what you see, that influence is still there.
And for advertisers.
The affordance is insight. They get data on what users engage with, which allows for really targeted ads. So even with local data storage, you still have privacy questions about tracking and profiling for commercial gain.
It really sounds like none of this tech is neutral. It's designed with certain possibilities in mind, and it creates different situations for different groups.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the black box problem with the Pango algorithm.
Right. Everyone calls it a black box. Why? What's hidden?
It means we see the result, the videos on our feed, but we don't see the process. We don't know the exact recipe. How much does watch time matter compared to likes or shares? What about demographics or the topics? How are all those weighted?
We just see the cake, not the ingredients list or the oven temperature.
Good analogy, yeah. We don't get the internal logic.
You can hit not interested on a video.
Right, which gives it some feedback.
But it doesn't tell you why it showed you that weird video in the first place. No explanation.
Exactly. And it's not just us regular users. Creators don't fully know. Researchers struggle to study it. Even advertisers probably only get a limited view. It makes it really hard to understand why things go viral or why certain topics seem to get less visibility.
So, despite the mystery, what are the intended goals? What does TikTok want the algorithm to do?
Well, the main goal seems pretty clear. Keep users engaged. Keep you scrolling. Keep you on the app longer.
Makes sense for business.
Totally. It's also meant to help you discover new stuff, new creators, maybe things you wouldn't find otherwise. That drives growth for the platform.
And for creators, it's supposed to give them a shot at being seen, right? Even if they don't have millions of followers yet. Build communities.
That's the ideal, yes. Provide visibility, foster niche communities around shared interest.
But it wouldn't. It doesn't always work out that way, does it? There are some serious downsides, these undesired outcomes.
Oh, definitely. The sheer amount of data needed raises huge privacy flags. And the addictive design. There are real concerns about mental health impacts, especially for younger users.
Yeah, I read that worrying point about vulnerable teens potentially being fed harmful content very quickly by the algorithm.
Right. And then there's the whole issue of content suppression. We've heard reports, concerns, particularly impacting marginalized communities.
Echo chambers, too.
Echo chambers, yeah. The personalization is great for relevance, but it can also mean you just see stuff that confirms your existing views, limiting exposure to different perspectives.
That suppression issue feels really important. Our sources mentioned Black creators, racial justice topics, sometimes seeming less visible.
Yes. There have been reports and concerns raised about that. TikTok even apologized back in 2020 for what it called a technical glitch affecting things like the hashtag Black Lives Matter hashtag.
A glitch.
Well, regardless of intent, if the system ends up limiting the reach of certain voices or topics, it kind of undermines that goal of building an inclusive community, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It creates these unequal playing fields, potentially reinforces biases.
Exactly. It can make it harder for certain communities to get their message out or feel represented.
So, looking at the whole picture, who seems to be winning with this algorithm and who's potentially losing out?
Well, you could argue new creators benefit. They might get seen faster than on other platforms where you need followers first.
Okay.
And users with really niche hobbies or interests, they can find amazing communities, connect with people they'd never meet otherwise. That's a definite plus.
But the harms?
The harms fall on those groups who feel their voices are suppressed, marginalized communities facing that lack of visibility.
Right.
Adolescents, definitely facing addictive design and potentially harmful content exposure. And parents are obviously worried about what their kids are seeing.
Yeah.
It's not an equal distribution of benefits and harms.
It all feels so tangled up. The tech, the people using it, the rules around it, the money. You can't just look at the code by itself.
Exactly. And that's where this socio-technical way of thinking comes in. It's super useful here.
How so? What does that lens help us see?
It forces us to see how technology and society shape each other. It's not just tech impacting society or society demanding tech. They're intertwined.
Okay.
So we can't just blame the algorithm as if it exists in a vacuum.
Right.
We have to look at the laws, the policies, the cultural trends, the economic pressures. They all influence how the tech is built and used, and the tech, in turn, shapes those things.
The source material mentioned a socio-technical Clover framework. What's that breakdown?
Yeah, it's a model to think about these interconnected parts. You've got the technology, architecture, and code, that's the algorithm, project text is the nuts and bolts.
Got it.
Then laws and policies, things like the U.S. ban, data regulations, content rules,
Makes sense.
cultural norms like, viral trends, influencer culture, how people actually use the app day to day.
Right.
And finally, markets and economics,
Oh.
TikTok's business model, advertising, the creator economy. They all connect and influence each other.
So if we use that framework, thinking about solutions,
Yeah.
what does that suggest? How could we address some of the problems?
Well, looking at technology architecture and code, maybe you could build in more user control.
Like how?
Imagine feed settings where you choose to prioritize diversity or see more educational stuff, or even just a simple chronological feed sometimes.
Ah, options.
Options, exactly. And more transparency, like those "why am I seeing this" buttons, but maybe more meaningful ones. Give people some insight.
Okay, that's the tech angle.
Hmm.
What about laws and policies?
That's where things like mandating algorithmic transparency could come in, requiring regular audits,
Okay.
maybe by independent U.S.-based groups.
Audits for what? Fairness? Bias?
Both, potentially, especially for systems influencing kids.
Hmm.
Check for security risks, sure, but also check if the algorithm is having unfair impacts on certain groups.
It definitely shows why just saying ban it or don't ban it is too simple. There are so many layers.
So many layers: the code, the rules, the culture, the money. They're all tangled. And the socio-technical view helps us ask better questions, like who benefits from this design? Whose voices get amplified? Who gets left out? It pushes for a deeper understanding.
Okay, so wrapping this up, it's clear TikTok's algorithm is incredibly powerful. It fueled that amazing growth, but it's also right at the center of all these huge issues: national security, censorship worries, bias concerns.
Absolutely. It's this complex dance between the technology, the policies trying to control it, how we all behave on the platform, and the economic goals driving it all.
And there's that constant tension, isn't there, between giving you the super personalized feed
Which would be great.
and the risk of creating echo chambers or suppressing certain voices, especially for younger people or marginalized groups.
That's a key dilemma.
So understanding that black box algorithm seems crucial. We need more transparency, more accountability, and this socio-technical approach seems like a really valuable way to think about it all, to look for actual solutions.
Definitely. Which leads us to a final thought, really, for you
Yeah.
listening. Given how much power these recommendation algorithms have now,
Yeah.
how do we make sure they actually help us understand more, connect us better, more fairly, instead of just reinforcing biases or limiting what we see? What's the responsibility here? For us as users,
Okay.
for the platforms,
Mm.
for governments, how do we build a digital world that's more just, more transparent?
That's a big question to chew on. Lots to think about there.